A very warm welcome to all you wonderful listeners and viewers of Universal Mentors Association TV. We are here back today presenting our second digital banking transformation summit, wherein we'll be hosting few really amazing bankers across the sector, whether it is from the banks, from the NBFCs, from any other sector as well. And this amazing session is powered by Brain Wonders, being the partners of this amazing digital transformation banking conclave. We'll be live, we'll be seeing a lot of improvement, a lot of technological discussions by some eminent speakers across the banking sector. We'll have soon to be joining in Mr. Shankar Jadhav, who's the managing director of BSE Investment Holding Company of Bombay Stock Exchange and head strategy of BSE. We'll also be joined by Mr. Sumesh Joshi, who will be the Deputy Director General of UIDAI Government of India. And then we'll be having, close to 4 or 5 power pack sessions throughout the day, talking about the transformation, talking about artificial intelligence, talking about importance of digital threat protection and security. We'll be talking about the future of new normal and digital payments. We'll also be talking about how fintech is shaping up the digital lending landscape across the sector, and we'll also be discussing one very, very important aspect of Indian, I think, banking, transformation that we've seen these days is the digital banking factors, tech-driven, BFSI, the complete revolution of the banking and finance sector, across the spectrum. Good news. We are also, as you're aware, that this is a YouTube channel of Universal Mentors Association. Very soon, our web portal, our technology review platform, will also be live. In the coming week, you'd be seeing that we'll be reviewing a lot of technology from education, from banking and finance sectors, the technology that are used by these banks, by the education institutions, whether it is school, higher education, or preschool. We'll be reviewing those, various products, placing it on our platforms, and you'd be able to view all of those technology category wise and being placed in one single platform. It's a huge update that we are creating, and it will be live within the next week or so. uh, Moving on, we have some amazing news for all the education fraternity. uh, we are also hosting our third Edu Leaders Summit on the 8th of July at Hotel Eros Nehru Place, wherein we'll be hosting more than 350 odd education institutions across the country. In fact, across the world, there are going to be some eminent educationists talking about the transformation, the national education policy and its implementations. There'll be a lot of discussion, a core discussion about uh, how education sector has completely transformed, and how the focus from school books have been shifting to skill development. We'll also be honoring the top 100 principals of the country in that event, where you will be seeing some of the renowned educationist faces across the country, in fact across the world, joining in, us joining in at Hotel Eros Nehru Place on the 8th of July. So without further ado, let me just tell you today's major update on this amazing conference that we are hosting, powered by Brain Wonders. We are all to give you a small brief about Brain Wonders. They are into psychometric assessments and helping a lot of organizations in terms of hiring required talent, and uh, you know placing talent and placing talents on the basis of psychometric assessments, which is a world class product that they have been recognized, being patented by the American standards, and helping a lot of banking and finance sector uh, you know to to get that. I think I'm getting a question in the panel according. Okay, so this is a really amazing. If you have any questions, all the viewers, all the watchers of Universal Mentors Association, you're free to reach out to. We are waiting the presence of Mr. Jadhav, who will be joining us in about a couple of minutes. We'll be talking about uh, you know the complete transformation of the banking sector, especially during the pandemic. And in fact, India has become the largest digital paying economy, uh, after China, and that is one such amazing feat to achieve. And all thanks to Prime Minister Modi and his vision of taking India through a complete digital transformation in terms of payments. Throughout this day you'd be listening to some of the stalwarts of banking and finance sector. You'll be listening to Mr. Sridhar Shamara, who's the chief strategic officer of Aegon Life. We'll have Major Sandeep Valant, who's the CMO of Nippon Life India. We'll also have Mr. KV Deepa, who's the senior president of Bajaj Alliance General Insurance. We'll also have Prasanna Lohar, who's the Vice President Technology of DCB Bank. We are still awaiting the presence of Mr. Shankar Jadhav, who's the Managing Director of BSA Investments, a holding company of Bombay Stock Exchange, and head of strategy of BSA. Uh, we'll also have an industry presentation where we'll see how Brain Wonders is changing the hiring landscape in the banking and finance sector, where we'll be seeing how psychometric assessments are helping really good employees to be assessed. Banking and finance is another sector where we have seen a high attrition rate. So placing right candidates at the right position is really important, and we'll be seeing how Brain Wonders is helping a lot of NBFCs, a lot of banking sector players across the country in shaping up the in shaping up the correct talent hiring positions. uh, in our second panel discussion, where we'll be talking about uh, the importance of digital threat and protection and zero trust. We'll have Mr. SV Sundar Krishnan, who will be the Chief Risk Officer of Reliance Nippon Life uh, Insurance Company. We'll have Miss Babita BP, who's the CIS of CSB Bank. We'll have Mr. Abhijit Shah, who's the Chief Technology Officer of Nippon India Mutual Fund. And we'll also have Mr. Pawan Chawla, who's the CISO and DP of Future Generally India Insurance. Uh, and we'll also have Mr. Shashank Bajpai, who's the CISO and ECGC Limited. Then we'll also have Mr. Sunil Kumar KN, Chief Compliance Officer of Federal Bank, joining in for our next panel discussion. I would request my backend team. I think there is Jadhav sir at the backend. He's having some troubles with his mic and camera. If you can help him out. We are joined in by Mr. Sumesh Joshi, who's the Deputy Director General of UIDAI, Government of India. Uh, he'll be speaking very, very soon. We are also still awaiting Mr. Shankar Jadhav, who's the Managing Director of BSE Investments, holding company of Bombay Stock Exchange, and Head of Strategy and BSE. Mr. Shankar Jadhav, it's a pleasure having you back again, sir. It's such a wonderful honor to have you join us for this amazing session. Sir, I think you should correct your camera. Okay, I think there are some. We are all been talking about digital transformation, and we are still bound of technology that we use. If we use, I think if he uses the landscape mode on his phone, then it will be better to have him on board.
Yes, you were saying something. You lost me in between.
Yes,
Sorry.
sir. I said it is such a wonderful thing to have you on board. It's our second event, and with folded hands, we welcome you, Shankar sir, for joining us and sharing your immense knowledge with us on this second digital transformation banking summit that we're seeing. As you're aware, that we'll be having players across sectors, banks and NBFCs, insurance organizations across the country participating in this wonderful summit. More than 50 odd speakers across the country are participating in this amazing session. And to start off with you, sir, it's always been a privilege. So I'll not take another second. I think I've spoken enough, and the audience would love to hear from you directly, Shankar sir. So please take the session away, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandeep. It's very kind of you to say such good words. It's a pleasure to talk to all my friends in the audience in the morning. I really don't know in this platform. I can't find out how much audience is there and who all are there. But I welcome you all. And let me start by saying that India is at a juncture, at an inflection point where things will only get better. And we are all there to see it make it. The progress that we have seen over the past few decades and the progress we will see over the next few years is going to be a vast difference. The main reason has been technology, and that's what we are going to speak here about. Technology had changed everyone's lives, it's touched everyone. And what people used to think that technology will only allow you to communicate well with each other, stating that yes, you can get information, etc., etc. We have passed that, and we are now at a place where technology is likely to replace many things that we do manually. And it will be no wonder that one day the only thing that is required for the world to exist is a human mind, and you just have to sit at home and do everything. And in this, the regulators as well as the enablers like you and me and many other people involved in IT are important. Let me start by congratulating our fintech industry for ensuring that we did not have any problem whatsoever during the whole pandemic era that can be called as the last 2.5, 3 years. One of the reasons was that though it was unexpected, it was sudden, our people were ready. The regulators, the government, and the fintech industry was ready to take on the challenge. In fact, I was very surprised to see the regulator saying that work from home will not be allowed for the IT sector people in the fintech industry or the MIIs. And I wonder they've just forgotten the lesson for the last 3 years, because most of us have worked from home in the last during the pandemic era. Yes, there was necessity of certain people going to office and to our various data centers and the IT centers, but we have done very well. So coming from there, let me also point out certain things that we may look into the future. One of the things I sadly and I feel very bad that our industry has done is that we have forgotten the customer, the main reason why we exist. In fact, I would say instead of saying we have forgotten the customer, I think we've started thinking that the customer of ours is the regulator, is the government, is our shareholders, etc. The customers require a service, They require service cheaper, better, faster. We definitely give them better and faster services, maybe, but surely not cheaper, because I was hoping that the transaction charges, the things that we do in banking as a retail customer, the prices will reduce, but doesn't seem to have happened. Doesn't seem likely in the future. One of the reasons being that the cost of services provided, especially the technology, is quite high even today. In fact, many organizations are afraid to use open source software. Whereas in private, they will always say the open source software, the free software is very good and very nice, and people can plug loopholes very easily there, and it's always alive. But when it comes to organizational needs and using that in the official technology part, I think people are still a little worried whether it works or not works. If something fails, what happens? I think we are taking risk mitigation measures a little too far by saying only the name will subsist. You take the big five companies, take their software and the services, and then the regulators, or we are very calm and cool thinking, yes, we mitigated the risk. It's not so. The big software companies normally will ensure that if there are problems, they are taken corrective actions very promptly, whereas the smaller organizations may not take it as prompt. That's one difference. And the second difference is the bigger software companies ensure that even if there is a flaw, it is not really taken out of proportion and blasted in the news. The smaller companies can't do much, and the media, they require something or the other, and they will put on very big things. That's one. Second point I wanted to say is the customers are looking at services, but every entity, I have say 10 bank accounts for being on different boards of different companies and other things. Each bank will want me to use their app. I don't know what these apps do. I don't know whether the testing that we are talking about really actually happens. So I am really worried. Should I download so many apps? Should I do these things? What should a customer do? In fact, because we are downloading so many apps and people are told, oh, you want to do banking, download my app. We have seen that some companies, the NBFCs or so-called NBFCs, even if they are not, because they all tell you, you want a loan, download this app and we'll give you a loan. And we've seen lots of loan frauds happening. It is up to us to tell our customers, to make them aware that downloading an app is not required. In fact, I myself prefer browser-based working of all secure transactions. We have to start using browsers because it's a third-party browser. You start using that and work on it. Any bank can be accessed from the browser. You ask people to type and don't give links. Like today also, I had told Sandeep, in fact, I've been trying to tell almost all event managers, don't give me a link to click on. You want me to click on a link because you want to make sure that the right person who I've sent the link will click on. But for me, I don't know what the link does. I do not know where it goes. I don't know when I give permissions to the site. I do not know what it does. So I had a problem in the morning to log in because my browser doesn't allow mic or camera without permissions. It doesn't allow to go to certain sites without permissions also. So browser-based services would definitely be better. In fact, I'll give you some example. I come from the stock markets, or rather I am working in the stock market currently. And you will see that the number of frauds in the stock market are much lesser for retail customers than that in banking. And one of the main reasons is in stock markets, we don't permit many things except that is necessary. You will see that hardly anyone complains, okay, I had given my OTP and my shares went down, or my account got debited in the share market, etc., etc. There are certain reasons for it. We got a lot to learn from the share market technology. And in fact, we also have to learn how to separate the ledger from the journal. Like for instance, stock market, we do use depositories and custodians, and we manage the transactions, and the clearing and settlement also is a separate thing. In banking sector, we have avoided separating the various activities. In the insurance sector, for instance, now let's come to insurance sector. The technology exists, but the insurance prices are huge. Today, there is lots of scope for fintech companies or NBFCs or people who aggregate to talk about why a term plan for the same person is half the cost in one insurance company versus the other. What happens if a person dies? There are standard rules of IRDA, but there are lots of claims which are rejected even when a person is no more. I am very surprised that why can't the insurance industry ensure that every death that is covered will be covered after a certain period as per IRDA norms? Why should people have doubts? The medical insurance industry, for instance, we talk about cashless, and then there are times, in fact, I hear lots of customers, and you just go to the websites and you go to the internet and you will see all of them complaining they talk only cashless, but they don't do cashless. The hospitals charge you over and above what the insurance company pays you. There has to be some working. We can't just say technology is an enabler and we are only IT people. We have to ensure that the technology works for customers, technology works to make businesses efficient and effective. I have seen that I ask a question and we have chatbots. The chatbots just go on randomly going round and round and round and round. Our customer service should be so helpful that most of the customer queries can be answered easily. At least that is a very simple thing that we can manage. I have seen some banks and some NBFCs and some insurance companies really employ very good chatbots, very good video chats, wherein the person doesn't even know that it's a robot it's talking to. It's just a recorded video it's talking to. They think that the responses are to his questions. Why can't many organizations share the costs, maybe learn from each other, and provide these simple services? And how do we assure our customers that their money will not be lost? By doing technology, using technology, what we have done is we have forgotten the customer. We've just got him a customer ID or an account number. And we just don't care whether the customer is a boy, girl, man, woman, whether he's educated, uneducated, etc. If the number is there, if I put the pin, I assume he's there or not there. And then lots of frauds occur for people we have a lot of illiteracy in our country. We have lots of people who are not as tech savvy. In fact, I'm glad that the regulator insisted that we have offline banking available. We have banking available for feature phones rather than just smartphones, because our fintech people or most IT people assume that like they are very smart, like they are rich enough to buy a smartphone or a smart device, all others can do it. I wonder where this confidence comes from. Maybe it is just because they want to skim the market, just the top end who can afford, who can understand, they want to take it. But let me tell you, the services will change when majority of the people, and I would not even say bottom of the pyramid, because bottom of the pyramid doesn't have food to eat maybe, but majority of the people should be finding this very, very strong way of banking where they don't lose their money. If they lose the money, there is prompt action by the bank to reverse the money. I can tell you, we have done some calculations. I have done some research project with kids, the college children, and we found out if the banks decide any losses below a certain amount, and we had tried some 5,000 and 10,000 rupees, if the bank just reimburses the customer on complaint, they will not lose much. It will be a fraction of the NPAs they are losing, where people default willfully or where people talk about crores of loans given and the people defaulting. I think the industry should look at the risk, should look at the insurance cover for it. You can look at copay, because if a customer loses 10,000 and you give him 8,000 back, at least he loses something, so he'll be careful next time. But he's not totally lost, because for that customer, that 10,000 is a huge, huge amount. And I believe that the banking sector should look at risk mitigation, because like we have term insurance, like we have medical insurance, we should have a fintech insurance where if because of OTP or any other mistake of the customer or otherwise, there is an insurance that we have done. In fact, I remember when I was in a company which started, in fact, I can name the company because we were in Reliance. And when we gave phones to the people, we insure the phone. So if the phone, something happens or the phone doesn't just stops working, the insurance company gave the money to the people. And the people were very satisfied. So I think a fintech industry should look at such things. We also have to look at many other things, which I will not talk here, but we use artificial intelligence and machine learning all the time. We have been using AI and ML in various forms of over the last few decades. Many people don't know. Many people still don't believe that we've been using robots for last few decades. We have been using them, but we have not been using them as a name or a jargon. But today we have capabilities, we have data that is so strong that you can find out almost everything about a person, because whatever person buys or sells is known to the banking company of it. The fintech industry knows about it. We can profile a customer so well, and we can provide a service. Unfortunately, instead of giving the customer cheaper, better, faster, we are all thinking of only making money out of the customer. And this will keep on happening until we believe that our mission, our vision is to make as much money as possible for only one stakeholder, that's the shareholder, and no one else. I think we will have to look at various shareholders. In fact, the world today is looking at ESG. I do not feel confident that Indian entrepreneurs, Indian people would get into ESG as they should be. Our share of ESG funding is a very, very meager sum as compared to the world. One of the reasons could be that Indians are not aware of what ESG is. They only think of environment, maybe, and banking company only uses data centers, maybe, which is harmful to the environment. But the rest of the things are not so. But they should also think of what happens to the society and what happens to the corporate governance. Banking is a very trusted entity, and when trust is lost, I know of many banks that have gone bad over the last few years. The some of the banks depositors and customers have been left high and dry by the regulator, whereas some of the banks, due to whatever reasons, were taken care of by someone else. I am very glad that in some cases the shareholder, who's supposed to be a risk taker, who has taken the risk on the entity and the promoter, they are supposed to lose money when the bank fails, not the customer and the depositor. In fact, in the stock markets, we have a investor protection fund which gives out money if the broker or any thing in the system defaults. Whereas in the banking system, we have just come to 5 lakhs, and that too after so many years, we don't know whether we'll get or not. And we have to get out of it. So ESG is one focus that banks should look at. There is going to be a huge uh, amount of funding coming through ESG. The customers, the stakeholders, the whole world knows that climate change is real, that you have to take care of the society, and you have to take care of corporate governance. I believe this can happen in India very well if we, as fintech leaders, also take part in this action, find out how we can reduce. I know that the finance sector requires redundancy in all tech. You can't have a server going down and people suffering. But at the same time, as long as you don't have penalties for things gone wrong, we will not change. Like, for instance, RBI had suggested in between that if the ATM runs dry thrice in a particular period, then there should be a penalty. And that penalty, I find it is reasonable, because if banks can penalize the ATM service providers, like those people who keep the cash inside, why can't banks pay the penalty to the regulator or to the customer? So there are certain changes that we look forward to. I am sure that in future we will not only require to have a password or something, but we will have banking for the illiterate, banking for the less aware customers, and banking for people who do not know how to take care of risks like OTP, etc. So we could have facial recognition, we could have fingerprint recognition. I know there are possibilities of being duped there also, but we can use multi-factor. We can ensure that something is there. And let me stop by saying one more thing. Sometimes we have to see whether the customer is the customer that we really want to have. Sometimes what happens is the customer who doesn't have money is not a banking customer, who is not an insurance customer. At such a time, someone, ideally it should be the government, because we do live in a country which is a democratic country. The constitution, the preamble to the constitution says that we require to provide people to live. The freedom to live should be there, and we should take care of all our people through that. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. So we should think of banking services, insurance services, or fintech services to the right kind of customers, provide them. And for the others, we have to find out ways and means. Like, for instance, I still remember in the Jan Dhan Yojana, there were still some people who didn't want to have a banking account. One is because they didn't have the money. But second is the nearest bank or the nearest contact point was 10-20 kilometers away. Why would a person want to bank there? They don't know what a smartphone is. Even if they have a smartphone, they can't even go to the college classes because there's no internet connectivity maybe there. They can't afford the plans maybe, and they don't know if it's not secure. Why should they bank there? There is a misunderstanding, because we want to control who's banking, whether we should track 100% audit trail, and we try to achieve 100% perfection. I believe that even if we achieve lesser perfection, but whatever we do is most secure, is much more affordable than what we do. I think it will be a big, big revolution for us. In fact, if I look forward to in the next decade or so, if we can reduce the cost of banking transactions by more than half due to fintech, I'll be the happiest person thinking that yes, our industry has done something good for our people. Thank you very much, Sandeep, and the audience. I hope that the whole day today, the event will come up with lots of innovative ideas and implementations and learning, which we all can learn. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for such wonderful words. And I think everything that you said, I was just nodding my head because I've been relating to everything that you've been saying. First things first. You talked about technology compared big organizations with smaller ones. Just to give you an information, sir, Universal Mentors Association is coming up with one of a kind of a platform where we are reviewing technological products, basically, that is helping banking sector and the education sector. And this reviews are given by the bankers, or maybe the educationists for the education sector. So uh, you know we'll categorize the different products, and it is absolutely free of cost for the technology players and free of cost to the bankers to get an access from. So we are starting to work on it, and we'll be launching it by the next week. So if you have any inputs for us for any other technology, and if you would like to review any product, we are more than you're more than welcome to share it with us, and we'll try to create an ecosystem where these technologies reaches, or the people are made aware about the technology that are available in the market today. Secondly, I so totally agree with you when you talk about the insurance, especially the medical insurance, because my mother was admitted, a couple of months back in the hospital. My grandmother was in the hospital, last month as well, and we face the same problem that you said. We had the medical insurances, but over and above, we had to pay money to the hospitals. And I don't know why we had to pay the money, in spite of uh, if you would have seen right before the pandemic or during the pandemic, the the premium amounts had been increased to such a high proportion to cover all the diseases in the banking, in the insurance sector. And I so totally completely agree with you and on what you have said and what you have shared with us. Thank you so much, sir. But moving on to another special person with a special address, Mr. Sumesh Joshi, who's the Deputy Director General of UIDAI, Government of India. It's a pleasure having you on board, sir. And
Morning, Sandeep, and morning, Shankar. I heard Shankar, and
Good
I know
morning.
him very well. So, and we have met and lots of things. He has taught me from BSc security perspective when we visited BSc.
absolutely, sir. So, Shankarji was talking about regulators and
Yes.
having some regulations, and we have a regulator amongst us who would be talking about this his experiences, his uh, you know uh, thoughts on the transformation of digital banking.
Sir,
Sir,
your
over to
idea
you.
has brought about a revolution in Indian history. So I would congratulate them. And yes,
Thank
sure,
you.
I'll like to participate in your reviews process and learn from it also. Thank you.
Certainly, Shankar, we are in touch and we will be in touch. So, so good morning, Sandeep, and good morning, everyone. Sorry. So, this topic is, of course, how this digital transformation has changed the entire, the way of delivery of any service, and typically in the BFSI sector. And Shankar has given lots of example and challenges that we are facing in the field. Because I'll just set the context for this digital transformation. See, the pace at which it has happened is really, really, commendable. That we have seen 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. Very soon we will see the connectivity point of view, that the 5G, and another thing, that the smartphone, the penetration of the smartphone in the market has increased, and this has made possible to leverage the internet using the smartphone and the delivery of these services. And of course the contents are there, because without content, without application, nothing can move. We have the connectivity, we have the devices last mile. So what is happening in the ecosystem, the expectation of the customer is increasing day by day. Maybe gone are the days, maybe someone is very happy if suppose in 30 minutes he is able to take the cash from the branch banking. But now, for a minute, people are, why it's not happening. They want so-called that IMPS, immediate mobile payment system. So they want everything instant. Expectation is growing day by day, and this is the responsibility of the ecosystem partners to fulfill the expectation of the customer. And in the fintech sector, of course, we have seen from the branch banking to ATM to the internet banking, then the point of sale, so credit and debit card swipe, and then the micro ATMs through the business correspondent, so one can open the bank account and do the banking transaction, etc. And the biggest revolution I can say is the UPI, that is the QR based payment system. Right, it's the typical in the payment system, not as on date the complete banking solution, but the UPI has changed totally the landscape in our country. So it's a revolution, I can say. And we term this UPI as a digital public good or digital public infrastructure provided by the government. And another digital public infrastructure, of course, the organization I belong, that is Aadhaar. So it's again a digital public infrastructure one can leverage. Now to proliferate, the customer acquisition or to provide the services. So the three things that come to my mind, there are many more aspects. The first is the connectivity. Of course, Shankar has already touched upon this. So connectivity is very, very important, because if there is no connectivity, we are not able to provide any service. So of course, the government has the ambitious plan, and lots of villages have been connected to the optical fiber. And very soon, all the village, 6 lakh villages will be connected to the Bharat project, and fiber is there. So connectivity issue, government is going to solve it. And then another is the cost factor. Earlier, maybe fintech products are there, but the acquisition cost is very high. So no one is going into the rural market, because typically in the fintech sector, suppose someone is going, and from marketing point of view, they are tapping say 10 customers, maybe 1 or 2 actually taking the service. But the cost was so high, so no one is going. So they are just skimming the market, and they are concentrated only in the urban market where the cost of acquisition is less. But with the technological advancement and the internet, and using this digital public good of Aadhaar, that is digital ID, eKYC, and so the cost has been reduced, and now many entities are tapping the rural market also, and providing many services, and not only the banking, all the entire fintech services that they are providing. Another thing that we are seeing, and a lot will happen in near future in the technological market, I can say, using the AI/ML and the blockchain. So everyone is relying on the predictive analytics, and they are analyzing the consumer behavior. So there's suppose maybe they can even predict. Maybe I am not able to predict. Maybe that the machine can predict that after 15 days I required a credit. So this is the power of the AI/ML that is coming up. And the many companies, sometimes we think, no, I'm okay, but I don't know, because they are totally doing the entire data analytics. So products are having many features, and the customized product the fintech industry is offering using this big data analytics, and the predictive analyst and product developments are taking place. And of course, using that, the consumer is the king, we say. So we have to solve all the grievances. We have to take the suggestions, the feedback continuously. So maybe a call center is one of the option. The email is one of the option. Of chatbot that Shankar has touched upon. So with more and more AI ML, and the consumer behavior analysis, these chatbots are able to solve many of the problems just a click away. It's very simple. There's no need to call, and maybe when we have seen, sometimes we get frustrated when we make a call to the helpline, and maybe we are in the queue at the 25 number. It takes a 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It is very difficult. Right? No one can hold nowadays. They want within a second, even a minute is more. So the chatbot is giving those sort of solutions. And in the fintech market, huge expansion is happening, and we will see exponential expansion in this market. Maybe the banking perspective, of course, everyone is having the bank account. So Aadhaar is happen using the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, and almost everyone is having the bank account, because the bank account is the basic backbone to give any fintech service. So this Aadhaar at the base has created this backbone. And then, of course, we can innovate further products, maybe simple payment service to the investment, or maybe trade product. One can trade because Shankar is from that entity, that all the equity trading and the mutual fund trading. So those sort of things. So you can see with the power of the digital transmission, you can open account, the National Pension Saving account, just within a minute. You simply just log on, connect your bank from the back end, and sign the e-sign using the Aadhaar. So the bank account is open. So it's very simple. Otherwise, you see someone has to come to you, then all the paper-based form you have to sign. It takes a day or 2 or 3 days, maybe someone will scrutinize all these things. So many things are happening. So in the SEBI regulated entities, we can say, or IRDA regulated entities, or any other entities who are in the business to give the fintech products. So you are witnessing the surge in the loan market, the credit market, insurance market, and the mutual fund market. So everyone is tapping. And to make it very simple, because Aadhaar, of course, is the backbone. So UIDAI has allowed, along with the regulators, to all the deposit participants to become Aadhaar Aadhaar user authentication agency, user agency, or sub KUA or sub AUA. So for that, they are applying through the SEBI, and for the non-banking financial companies, NBFCs are also applying through the RBI and getting the license to use Aadhaar authentication or Aadhaar eKYC. So when very soon all these deposit participants and all the NBFC companies will on the Aadhaar platform, and they will start consuming this low-cost product, the eKYC, and many services, and they will further innovate on that. And apart from this private sector participation, right, government is also doing the direct benefit transfer, everyone is aware, and using this direct benefit transfer, all these schemes, maybe the central sponsored scheme or the state sponsored scheme, payment is going directly into the bank account, that is Aadhaar linked bank account. So because the money is going to the bank account, of course, then there are many products one can consume directly, linking the bank account. So if suppose the cash, then it is very difficult, right? But everything is on the is digital, so one can make lots of things using this digital accounts basically. And maybe other than fintech sector, of course, Aadhaar is helping many, the health sector typically, and the Jeevan Praman, so all these things. But as far as the finance is concerned, so all products are coming and using this Aadhaar as a base. So because KYC is very, very important, is the key. So 40 crore Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan accounts have been opened under Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. And so role of Aadhaar is very, very important. And maybe I don't know whether everyone is aware about the cost reduction in the Aadhaar authentication. The rupee, earlier it was rupees 20, now it is rupees 3. See the reduction from rupees 20 to 3. So it will further boost, the use of Aadhaar by all these NBFCs and the insurance companies and semi-regulated companies. So, but maybe everything will happen, people will start consuming it. But what are the challenges? The challenges that what we are seeing in the field, one is the fraud. This is very, very important because, in India, not every customer is much tax savvy. And here the definition of tax savvy is different. Maybe a literate, a PhD person is not a tech savvy. He or she is not able to do the banking. They are scared to even change the password. Or maybe labor is very good, doing the banking. So the definition of the tech savvy from the fintech point of view is very, very different. So we have to just factor in when we design any training or awareness program, because we have to train. We have to just take out the fear out of people's mind, and we should educate them that yes, in this fashion, if you consume this product, there is no fear. Nothing is going to happen, right? Otherwise, people are very scared because something will happen, then media will, we can read the story about all these things. So, and to take the fraud, because it's a game, fraud will happen. We can't stop, but continuously we should have a robust mechanism to counter the fraud, because we have now AI ML, so we can data analytics continuously. We can find that which area, why the frauds are happening, who are the culprits, is there any loophole from the cyber security point of view. So all these things we should be, we should work in that direction and should have the robust mechanism. And typically, we have to take care of the rural area where people are not much tech savvy from the financial point of view. So Aadhaar can help in this, because it's not only the OTP based authentication, you can have the multi-factor authentication. So add one more factor of authentication in the form of the fingerprint, then maybe in the form of the iris, or now that face auth. Now the disruption that is coming in near future is the use of the face authentication. Already UIDAI has conducted a successful pilot in the Jharkhand while working with the COVID application, and now we are promoting the face auth, and now banks may come with the face auth, and this will act as again one of the modality. So using the face and the OTP, so we can find some way that we can ensure the security using this multi-factor authentication, because always we have to keep in mind the risk associated with the consumer. And again, when we define the risk, because one can say, okay, for say 10,000 rupees transaction, I will have this factor authentication, 1 lakh this factor authentication. But again, my take on this is, we can't simply say it's a amount sort of thing, because the 500 rupees for a lever is as good as the 50,000 for someone in a higher income bracket. So we have to take care of that part also. We have to flag the customer also in the database that yes, this person's income is only 10,000 rupees a month or 15 rupees in a month. So for him, even a transaction of 500 matter. So we should provide more security, as good as the same that someone is having 2 lakh in the bank account and withdrawing 20,000, 25,000 rupees. So all these things, we have to survey, and we have to understand the market also. And accordingly, we have to deploy this multi-factor authentication or the risk mechanism. Maybe now we are seeing everyone is working, and you are seeing the banking application. Now, typically in the credit card, they have all functions. So you have total control, domestic, international, limit, online transformation, or maybe the contactless. So you can define maybe. So, but the problem is whether the customers are aware, whether they are able to use those features. And maybe someone who's good in working with the mobile application, but what about the majority of the people who are not much tax savvy from the fintech point of view? What to do with them? So we have to, rely on the assisted mode in that case, because we can't simply done away with the assisted mode that is working in our country. So many business correspondent, or maybe so many village level entrepreneur. So whenever we provide any service to the assisted mode, we should have a strong mechanism to scrutinize the business correspondent. It should happen that that person will simply collude with the fraudster, and maybe someone has come, okay, give your OTP, put your thumb, withdraw the 500 rupees. The person will take the 500 rupees and will go. But again, 2-3 times maybe, on the garb of that, okay, the transaction is not successful, whatever. So one can misuse and withdraw instead of 500, 2,000 rupees. But we should have enough check and balances. That we have to think, the industry has to think how we can take care, because so many things will happen in the rural market and low ticket transaction. My volume is more, but how to take care of this fraud? Maybe we can't make it zero, but for us, even a single customer is very important. Why a single person will suffer on account of the fraud? So we have to think innovatively that how we can tackle it. Because see, from the consumer behavior, everyone is seeing, maybe the people who are coming from the state like Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar to the metro cities for work, and you can see that they are also using their smartphone. They are making the video call to their home. So it means they are able to use the smartphone, but not maybe the application point of view, but they are able to see the videos. Then they are watching the movies. So maybe they are well versed with the voice sort of thing, the video sort of thing. So what maybe the one of the suggestions that I have, maybe industry want, maybe they can further enhance it, that maybe we should have a trusted sort of the call center back end. Maybe whenever any transaction is happening, so maybe first that it will trigger something in the call center, and the call will come to the customer. You are there at the assisted mode or somewhere. You are going to withdraw the 500 rupees. Should I approve it? See, it's a call. It has a cost, but it can prevent. So even the business correspondent want to collude with the fraudster, he or she cannot, because again dependency on the call center, and that's more trustable. So like this, we have to think about the consumer awareness. So maybe we can create more videos on the WhatsApp. We are seeing so many videos are coming, but I have not seen any video which is educating from fintech point of view. Maybe one can some hilarious video, and maybe can in very simplified manner one can teach, so one can understand what are the nitty-gritty of that product, how one can use all these things. Then lastly, I will tell the 2 or 3 main aspects that we have to understand. One is the consent, because the coming era, because data privacy bill, maybe anytime it can become the act, and privacy, consent is very, very important to ensure the privacy. So no one can use my data without my consent. Now here the issue is how to take the consent. Maybe consent is by default on the application. So that also we have to think. See, it's our duty. Maybe the person is illiterate. Maybe he or she doesn't know what consent means. For him, everything is default. So whatever the BC is saying, you simply go by that. So that also the industry should think, that how can we take the consent in the proper manner. So everyone should know, okay, yes, I am giving my data, and I'm giving my fingerprint to authenticate myself. The data is coming only for that purpose. It is not going to be used for any other purpose. And the privacy, of course, that every entity should take care. Whatever the data we are collecting from the customer, it should not go out. Otherwise, it will lead to the information harm. Because we are seeing, maybe in the audience as well as Sandeep, you and me, we all are getting, and I'm seeing the increase in the number of calls are coming from the fintech sector. So actually every day I'm getting 3 or 4 calls for the personal loan, right? So it's very difficult, and sometimes people say, I will
In
stop.
fact, sir, I'll just give you an example. Sorry to cut you short.
Yeah.
So, as you were speaking and you were talking about having a facial recognition or something of that sort, we have all been using a software called Truecaller on our phone.
Yeah.
Whenever there is a spam that has been calling, we get a red flag. So what can happen is, to some UPIs or to the people who have been duping people, because they're not doing this to 1 or 2 people, they are doing this to multiple people, right? So if you can red flag the UPI itself, just like a Truecaller gives you a spam report, we can stop so many fraudulent activities out there. Secondly,
So,
sir, I also wanted to ask you that we've been talking, Aadhaar's role in Indian fintech.
Sandeep, I'll just finish next 5 minutes, and maybe we can discuss that later. So the
Sure.
last 2 points that I would like to make, that the privacy, of course, I touched upon. So finally, my request with all the fintech industry over here, because more and more digital we are going, more and more challenges we are facing. So we have to be more and more responsible also. So when we design any system and the fintech, because so many products will come, So when we draw an architecture, so we have to invest a lot on the architecture point of view, because if we have a robust architecture, right, it will help us in the future. Technology may change, right, very fast pace, but if we have a strong architecture in place, there is no need to rebuild the architecture. It's a really painstaking process, and people generally have forgotten about all these things. So the moment technology will come, they have one architecture, another technology, again the architecture. So we have to invest a lot in the architecture, and then maybe technology keep coming, changing, and but the fundamental should be strong. So with this, I stop, and my request is, if we all work together and use the digital public infrastructure and the power of the Jandhan, Aadhaar, and mobile, that is the jam, we very soon achieve the target of $1 digital economy that is government is poised to. So, and thank you very much for hearing me out. Because Aadhaar is such a vast subject, I can speak hours and hours, but Sandeep has given me so 15 minutes, maybe I exceeded 2-3 minutes.
No
So
problem,
please,
sir.
Sandeep.
Thank you so much, sir. I think Aadhaar has been instrumental in India's growth, especially in the fintech market. You have spoken some really amazing things about how the direct benefit schemes have been run by government. I think the same should be applied, because we are also into the education sector. So the same scheme should be maybe applied and being demanded by the education sector also. That how Aadhaar can actually play a role in the education stream, especially for the government schools, and how the direct benefit schemes could be transferred, because more than 49% of Indian students go into the private education sector.
Hmm.
So 51%, almost a 50-50 balance is between the government and the private education systems. So how government can actually make sure or allow, because Delhi government says that they spend close to 6,500 rupees a month on a student in on education. So the student should get the benefit to choose between the government school and the private school as well. And I think Aadhaar can be instrumental in the same. We so totally agree with you, sir, when you said that the rural market is, I think, the place to be. Uh, we've been India has been recently said that we are the top 100 uh, unicorns. 100 unicorns, we recently achieved the feat, and most of these unicorns are in the fintech sector. A major chunk of these 100 unicorns are in the finance, in the fintech sector. And if they are being successful in targeting the rural market, I think that is the only reason with the number, because India, for the world, India is a number market. It is not a price market at all. So I so totally agree with you. If we focus correctly on the rural sector, I think we'll definitely be achieved numbers, and we not need any foreign investor to make ourselves a unicorn anymore. I think our Indians, our population is vast enough to make ourselves a unicorn. Is what I really feel. Thank you so much, Sunmesh sir. It
Really,
will
Sandeep, and just at the end, just I will take a minute more, because I can't resist that. I want to share just in a minute of story that in when we started the Aadhaar project and this Aadhaar enabled payment system, opening of the bank account, and I showcased the same to then even the President Barack Obama, and then the Treasury Secretary of the United States. And the response of the Treasury Secretary was, after seeing the opening of the bank accounts using Aadhaar, he was totally amazed. And his remark was that it didn't happen in the US also. It took at least 24 hours to transact after opening of the bank account. And here, the power of Aadhaar, and the cost is reduced, and the acquisition is really, really paperless sort of thing. So I hope that in the coming time, all the entities, the startups, the unicorn will work more, and so many fintech product will be innovated, and we have to serve our rural India, because India is primarily a rural economy, and using the rural economy will make it the $1 trillion digital economy.
Absolutely, sir. And I so totally agree with this point also, that Aadhaar is such a wonderful and have done such an amazing feat in the Indian ecosystem, that having 15 minutes is definitely very very less time. So I think, sir, we should definitely get together, and we would love to interview you, and maybe
Yeah,
we can go 1 hour and talk about Aadhaar and its various implementations
fine.
across the sectors.
Thank you.
Very very soon. I'll ask Shilpa to get in touch with you for that interview as well. So thank you so
Thank you.
much, sir. It's been a pleasure to have you, join us on this amazing session and share how Aadhaar had actually transformed the Indian finance ecosystem altogether across the sectors. So these are not just banking and finance sectors, whether it is the education sector, whether it is the healthcare industry, whether it is whether it is now the election campaigns that are running in. Aadhaar has been instrumental in changing the complete Indian ecosystem per se. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
It
Thank you,
was a
Sandeep.
pleasure interacting with you, and we would definitely love to have you for a 1 hour session and not a 15-minute session. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Have a
Thank you.
wonderful day ahead. Thank you.